Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. This is the split top Roubo Workbench that I've been building for my editor Brad. And in the last video in this little series we're doing, we got the basic blank slate workbench built out of one of my workbench kits. And that basic bench is the starting point or the core of that workbench style. And then from there, you can accessorize and make the bench your own with all the different work holding accessories to really make it functional and have it work for your workflow. So this time we are going to be making this leg vise here. It is a fairly typical screw style leg vise, but it features this kick wheel down here, which is its parallel guide to keep the top of the chop nice and parallel to the face of the workbench and keep it from racking and actually be able to hold your parts really nicely and really securely. So that is the kick wheel leg vise. Let's get started on making it. It's in there. So I pulled out some stock for the vise mechanisms. I have this piece of 12-quarter cherry. That's going to become the chop. And then for the kick wheel, which is what we're going to start on first, I have this kind of gnarly piece of maple. This is a offcut from cutting this rear slab, so there's a lot of the same sort of characteristics in it. So with this one folded kind of open here, you can see that there's some continuity. I don't really remember if this was like from this direction or laid in like this, but we have all the bug tracks down here which match this end of the bench. And then as you come down to this end, we have the same kind of thing with this grain pattern and this branching and all of that. So Brad would kind of like this situation here to be used for the kick wheel. So we're actually going to make a few of these just in case. We'll make one out of this section here with the bug holes. We'll make a section here with a bit of this crotch in it, and then I'll make one just out of this clear area somewhere in the middle or maybe up there, just to have a third just in case something goes wrong along the way. So this thing is way too thick for what we're going to need. So before kind of going forward, I'm going to give us a few passes through the planer just to skim off some thickness, clean things up a bit, and we'll have a better idea of what the blanks for the kick wheels are going to look like. Gonna make a few of these. So there are the blanks, and if you haven't figured it out already, we're going to resin stabilize all of these to give them a little more strength, give them a little more weight, and then I guess with these ones, we're also going to cast them after they've been stabilized. So I just took these out of the oven. I just threw them in there for a few hours on dehydrate. The thing with resin infusing is you don't want any moisture or as little moisture as possible. So these were reading at 6.5, now they're reading at 5 or so. So I took a little bit of moisture out of there, so it should be a little bit better. These guys, because they're so holy, I can't even get a reading anymore on the meter, so they should do pretty well as far as getting resin infused. So what I have here is a vacuum chamber, and that is going to allow us to pull all the air out of the chamber and force all of the resin down into all the pores, all the dead airspace inside of the wood, and impregnate that wood with resin. And the resin we're using is a heat activated resin, so you can let the stuff soak and penetrate for as long as you want. The resin won't start curing until you actually put it into an oven. So we're gonna get this little vacuum chamber loaded up with my things. I've got some nuts here that I'm going to use as spacers so we can keep some resin between all the blanks. If you're wondering on the dimension of the kick wheel, it's dimensioned so that it fits into this chamber. Okay. And we'll see if I need any weight or not. Otherwise, it might start floating. But let me get some resin in here first. and then we'll see if we're going to need any more weight or ballast or something. I hope I have enough of this. That might be a problem. Oh, it is floating. All right, I gotta find some weights. Hopefully I have enough. It's gonna soak up a lot of this. If we need some more, I can just remove one of these because I don't technically need 4 blanks. And we can kind of go from there. All right, so let's slap this lid on here and get some vacuum pulled. Try to be careful to not suck resin into the vacuum pump. So you can see how much foam and froth we have going here. There's a lot of air in this thing. It's crazy how big the bubbles are. Like just boof, boof. Big old bubbles. Lots of air. Okay, these have been sitting for a day and a half now. I got a little distracted yesterday. It was a snow day. So let's get them out of here and get them in the oven. There is no more liquid I can see on top. So I'm going to see if there is any more liquid in here at all. Otherwise, this top one probably doesn't have that much resin in it. Let's see if there's any liquid left or if these absorbed literally all the resin that I had. Okay, so that's the first one. This one's kind of dry. So I'm gonna put that over there. These nuts out of here. Okay, there's one. All right, we got some liquid now. There's 2. There's just a little bit left down in there. So I'm gonna get these nuts rearranged a little bit. And I'm just gonna leave the one that was on top in this for a few hours while this first batch cures. So it's gonna soak up some more. Okay, I got an oven over here preheated to 200 degrees. And we're gonna put this in here for a few hours. Let them cure. This timing of this project worked out really nicely. We just demoed our old kitchen, and this is the stove that was in there. Well, now it's a resin baking stove. Not that I plan on doing this a whole lot, but the timing was good. Okay, this has been sitting in here for a few hours, so I'm going to get it out of here and get it into the oven with the other ones. And in case you're wondering why you don't want to do this in your house, the off-gassing is quite pleasant. Oof. There's some nice chunks of wood in here now. There's like almost nothing left. Those blanks were thirsty. I think the fill line was up here somewhere when we started. So what is this, a gallon? Yeah. So we used probably like 3/4 of a gallon or 2/3 of a gallon. I turned off the oven yesterday and I let them just sit in here to cool. There they are. Ugh. And I definitely should have weighed these because I know someone's going to ask how much weight they've picked up. And I can tell you, at least subjectively, this used to feel like nothing. Now it feels like a brick. It's crazy how much heavier this thing is now. All right, so we got these guys which need further processing. We're going to do some casting on these to fill all of those wormholes and make up this missing section that's kind of down there. So that's what I'm going to get set up to do next, is get them cast. And there's the crotch. This is heavy. Incredibly heavy. Okay, so the next thing. Since this is kind of a thick piece, I'm using a casting resin so I can pour this all in one go. The regular resins that you see me normally use, you can't really pour that thick because they create too much heat and they cause themselves to have a runaway reaction. They cure way too fast and you get cracking and defects in the pour. This casting resin cures a lot slower, so there's plenty of time for the heat that's created to dissipate. And basically the trade-off is that this just takes several days to cure instead of like 18 hours what the normal stuff typically takes to cure. But I can pour it all in one go and set it and forget it, sort of thing. Now on the bench top, we use just a black pigment just to give the epoxy just a little bit of color, but still reflect that sort of void type of look, that kind of shadow line look of the wormholes. This time I'm going to use a black metallic pigment, and that's going to give the same kind of look, but it's also going to have a little bit of shimmer because the metallic in the pigment will give it some opalescence. Hopefully Brad likes that. And if he doesn't, it's way down on the floor, so you're not going to see that often anyway. Yeah, I am going to pull a vacuum on this just to pull the air bubbles out. Normally with castings like this, you typically see this done with a pressure pot. So sort of the inverse of the vacuum chamber, you use air pressure to compress all the bubbles into bubbles that are so small you can't see them and they don't physically take up that much space. And then compressing the bubbles, you're basically pulling resin in to where the airspace used to be. So if you can't get the bubbles to actually flow out, like you have to do with the vacuum chamber, you actually have to have the bubbles somewhere where they can come out. And if you can't get them to come out, they'll just kind of be in there and be huge. But this isn't that thick. I'm not super worried about it, I guess. And it doesn't matter regardless because this won't fit in the pressure pot anyway. And it looks exactly the same as it did with the other stuff, just a foamy mess. Okay, there are the blanks for the kick wheels all ready to go, and just to show you, just give you an idea of how heavy these things are. That one there is 2 pounds 6 ounces, and if I grab this offcut, which is enough to do like, it's probably 3 blanks in there or something, it's 4 pounds. So we're kind of like a 2 times density. And as far as these ones are concerned, they had almost like nothing as far as wood goes beforehand. So maybe a better comparison is this guy. Like right at, what was that, 2 pounds? Right at 2 pounds. What was this again, 4? So basically double the density just with some stabilizing resin. So in this case, this is gonna be kind of nice because it'll give you some more inertia as you're trying to spin the thing around the shaft. So with the blanks done, I can actually start turning these things into the actual kick wheels. If you get the plans for this, we'll have an actual full-size template with all of the hole locations, everything laid out for you. Because we haven't drawn that yet, I'm going to do that all manually and then start drilling everything out. Okie dokie. Center right there, in a hole. Lovely. Okay. So if you haven't made the connection quite yet, we're just making a big one of these. That's literally all this is, just a big nut that goes on a screw. So that hole in the center there is going to get tapped to go onto the screw shaft. They'll run in the leg of the vise, or in the leg of the bench, I guess. So the tap is a 1 inch, 6 threads per inch, and just put it in here and tap away. I have this thing over one of my dog holes, so I should be able to just tap all the way through without hitting anything, but we'll see. Oh good, I tapped the bench. I didn't have it lined up quite right. And my dog hole's got threads. So now we have our big old nuts, and now we need some kind of screw for it to actually ride on. You can use a steel screw if you want to. This tap and die kit comes with the die, so we're gonna make a wooden screw. And this is the thread cutting die thing. It's got a little like tooth, V-notch tooth in there that lines up to the threads in this die section. So the tooth cuts it, and then the teeth in there actually keep it rolling through. And hopefully I can do this here on my leg vise without needing to make some V-blocks to hold this thing. Okay, I think I should be pretty close to having enough thread now. I got about 15 inches. You want to have at least as much thread as the vise screw, I guess minus the thickness of your jaw. So I need like that much thread. So I got that now. So that's about all I need. I guess I can back this thread cutter thing off of here, and that'll be our threaded shaft for the kick wheel to ride on. So there is the screw shaft. It gets a little flat area here, which is going to go into the leg vise until actually where the screw gets attached to the leg vise. So we got that piece is done. We've got some kick wheels. We can pick our favorite one, and from here, I think we can move on to the chop. So I'm going to get some stuff cleared out of the way, and then we'll start making a chop. Okay, here is our big chunk of 12-quarter cherry. I think I've had this sitting around for at least 12 years probably. I bet I cut this in 2013. Probably 2013 or something. Oh boy. All right, so we're gonna get the chop out of this general section down here. And it might be kind of cool if we can get the knot to like line up right at the location of the screw shaft, but we'll take a look and see. I'm looking at the reverse side now. This is the side towards the outside of the tree, so we have more cathedral grain and plane sawn stuff going on. I think this is going to look a little bit nicer on the outside of the vise, and I'm thinking this should work out pretty well. We can have the actual vise handle pop right through this little area here and sort of cover up this defect, and it'll look kind of centered in this double cathedral where the grain changes directions in both ways. So I think that's where we're going to aim for the center of the vise handle to actually go. And if I do that, the top of my jaw is going to be somewhere here. And then that would get us past a lot of that checking on the bottom. It's the bottom of the chop will be somewhere right there. So I think that's what we're going to go with. I'm going to get this thing chopped up a little bit and trim it down to, what's the width, 10 inches. And that should give us a start for the overall block that'll become the chop. Okay, I'm also going to go ahead and lay out the pinhole location, which is going to go in this direction. It's going to intersect our threaded rod here, there in the middle somewhere, and that'll be what locks it in place. So that just needs to be transferred around the side here. And then I got to figure out where this giant rabbit's going to go so I can locate the center of the pinhole, or whatever we want to call that. Pin that pins the screw thing to the vise jaw thing. Oop. So this wheel will exist somewhere in that area, but back in here. Okay, so that's our rabbit. Let's find the center of this pin. Okay, I think I have all my things figured out. You have 3 holes to drill, and then once those are drilled, we can remove this whole chunk of material back here. So there are the functional aspects of the jaw. We got the through hole, the stopped hole, and then the through pin hole, and of course the giant rabbet for the kick wheel to sit down in. And as I was going about this, the plans kind of just had it just be a square inside corner right here. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? Let me ask Brad what he thinks. Maybe he would like a little chamfer detail on here, or some kind of radius to kind of ease this inside corner a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer. He said, give me a radius. So that's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna make a little radius in here. I guess this is technically an aesthetic detail, but this is an aesthetic detail of a functional detail. So we might as well take care of that right now. Yeah, okay. Okay, with that out of the way, now I'm going to start working on getting the hardware mechanisms attached. The first thing is going to be the vise screw. So I had originally planned on mounting this horizontally to cover up that knot, but in seeing the way the grain kind of makes like a little circle or oval here, I think we're going to actually mount this thing vertically. I think that's going to be a little bit nicer with the grain and all that, and that's what Brad says he wants me to do, so that's what we're going to do. The Vise hardware comes with, or the Vise comes with these stylus screws, and just to make things look a little bit nicer, we're going to end up using a hex head threaded bolt for this. So I'm going to go ahead and mark, drill, and tap those hole locations for those bolts. These will get replaced with nicer ones later that will match the color that will be painting this green hardware. Not for... Okay, just for the sake of trying this thing, this is an undersized pin. Oh, it's a drill bit, but it's undersized, but at least it'll keep it in there so we can put this all together and give it a go. Okay, this is the Vise screw nut. We made this recess last time when we actually built the bench. This is one of those things that's quite a lot easier to do before you fully assemble the bench. You could certainly retrofit this, but it's going to be a lot easier to do this before this top rail is here. Okay, that is a functional leg vise. So now with it fully assembled, you can kind of see how it really works, where you have the kick wheel down there as a way to keep this jaw from racking inward when the load's applied up here. So that's your parallel mechanism, and it's actually, as is, like, it's got a pretty good grip without a whole lot of pressure on there. It's not bad. So now with the functionality done, we can get into the aesthetic and useful details, or details that make this a lot more usable than it is now. The biggest thing, of course, is that you can't access the kick wheel that easily because the jaw covers it. So really the aesthetics of how you reduce the width of the jaw in the kick wheel area would be, totally up to you. Brad has given me this drawing of what he would like, so we're gonna make that little notch there. So that's one of the aesthetic functional things. Another aesthetic functional thing is going to be clipping the top of the vise, as you can see on mine here. That's so if you're doing some hand sawing, as you're coming down on an angle, the vise jaw doesn't get in the way of your saw. And there are a couple of other little details on here to kind of make the bottom have a little more shape to it. And then Brad's also called out that he wants me to create a recess in the top of the jaw for the liner material, because he's super bougie like that, apparently. Now before I take this back apart, I'm going to run this thing in all the way so I can mark the final length of the vise. The chop should be flush, or if it has to be, maybe a little bit below the top plane of the bench. And then the bottom doesn't really matter, but Brad has it laid out so that the bottom is in line with the bottom rail of the bench. Okay, for all of the cuts in the profile, or to make the shape of it, I guess, I'm gonna make a template, because that seems like the easiest way to do it. 10 inches up. Okay, there is the completed chop with all of the profiling and all of the details on there, all done and ready to go. So I think what I'm gonna do next is get everything kind of through finish. So we're gonna do some edge profiling. Brad wants me to put a chamfer around the chop that matches the chamfer we put on the bench, and the same chamfer is gonna go onto the kick wheel as well. And then after some sanding and all that stuff, we should be ready to get some finish onto the chop and onto the kick wheel. Okay. That one's the most boring. Oh, maybe not. Actually, it looks pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing this bug hole one, though. Okay. All right, here are all the parts ready to go. So I think it's time for some assembly. This is the kick wheel that Brad likes the best for this. So that's what we're gonna do for this assembly at least. And we got all the spare ones in case someone wants to switch it up by seasons or whatever. So the first thing I'm gonna do is install the rubber liner, the cork rubber stuff, onto the chop up here in this recess. Okay, while I'm waiting for the glue to tack up, I'm gonna get the screw put back together. It's a little less green than it was before. Let's see, this goes like this, I think. It's been a few days. Okay, now for the kick wheel screw. So I actually ended up making a new one. On the second one I lubricated the dowel with boiled linseed oil, like it says you're supposed to do in the instructions, and that came out a lot cleaner. The other one's got a bunch of tear out in a few spots, which doesn't really affect its functionality. It still works just fine, but it doesn't look quite that nice. This one is basically perfect. There was almost no chipping along the threading of the screw. So that's the new one with boiled linseed oil as a cutting fluid. So that just drops in here. Now for the pin, I thought I had a long piece of brass that I could cut this length of pin out of it, but I don't. So we're gonna use this because that's what I have. I don't really know what Brad really wants for here. I think a cool pin would be like a blackened steel pin, because that would match like the bolts and all the other hardware on this bench. This pin can be a wood dowel, it can be brass, it could be cold rolled steel, it could be stainless steel. It doesn't really matter. It's just there to hold this shaft in place and keep it from pulling out. So we'll do that. If Brad wants to change this to a longer pin that actually works, which I'm sure he will, or I mean it works, just a longer pin so that the hole's not so empty on the side, or you could just move it forward further and have two empty sides looking to the hole. That would be fine too, but that's something for him. Kick wheel on. Huzzah! Oh, that's cool. Now that I can see the teeth, I guess, of the wheels sticking out. That's going to be cool. Well, that is one very beautiful and very functional vise, except one piece of functionality. This handle's not great, and the giant cheater bar handle is probably not going to be the best way to go either. So I think before we call this one done, we will let's make a handle. So I think I'm going to need a lathe for that. I'm going to turn the handle from this offcut cherry. This is from edging the slab for the chop, so it should look pretty good. We'll see if I can still turn, because it's been like, I think it's been 7 years since I turned, since I built the high boy. So I don't really know what I'm gonna do for the ends of this handle just yet, but I'm gonna start by just getting this thing into round, and then I'll probably bring the main shaft down to its final diameter, which is gonna be 1 1/8 inches, and then we'll figure out some kind of weird thing to do on the ends, whatever you wanna call those. The little holder things that keep the handle from sliding out of the shaft hole. Shaft hole? I don't know. Words. So that is the whole kick wheel leg vise, and then to use it, if you want to move the wheel out, you just kick on the left side. If you want to move the wheel in, you give the right side a kick, and it goes right in. And the clamping force is really great. This piece is all rough cut from cutting the rabbit out of there, but there is the whole kick wheel assembly all done and ready to work. So that is the kick wheel leg vise. I think it turned out really nicely. I think Brad came up with a really nice, fun design for the chop. And he's excited to finally have this bench in his shop as soon as it's actually done, because the next video in this little series will keep going on the accessories, and we'll do a lot more to this as we take that basic Roubo platform to a fully ready to go, ready to work thing that is perfect for whatever it is that Brad does in his shop. Again, if you want plans for this that include the full-size printable templates, those are over on my website, so you don't have to really worry about laying out all of those weird geometric things on there. You just print it out and stick it to your workpiece, and you go to town. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the basic Roubo platform of a workbench, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.